Good evening, everybody. Thanks for showing up for the mental game of cycling, staying focused and motivated. So tonight, Brian and I are here to answer any questions and go through a couple of items. If you're watching us live, you want to just say hello in the comment box. If you got any questions, please just post them there and we will get to them. So tonight we're going to talk about a couple of different items. We're going to start out with maybe talking about a little about some goal planning, and then go on to overcoming some setbacks. And then we'll finish up with how to stay focused during those really tough phases. And we should be on here for about 30 minutes. So how are you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well, Chuck. How about yourself? Good to have you on.
Good to be on. It's a pleasure. How's the weather in Colorado?
Well, it's currently sunny and somewhat pleasant at the moment. No snow, no grayness. It's a nice place to be in at the end of November.
Is it supposed to snow tonight?
I don't think so. I try really hard not to pay a lot of attention to the weather at this point. So, because it could snow tonight, it could be 75 tomorrow. It's one of those spin the wheel of fortune and see what happens with the weather today.
Hey, we've got John on from Pennsylvania. Hey, John, hope you're doing well in PA. It looks like that you're supposed to get about 10 inches of snow over the next couple of days. All right, Brian. So let's talk about setting some goals that stick.
So I think setting some goals that stick. So I guess the first thing I would start with is motivation, as most people know it, and relying on motivation strictly to get you through those tough times and stay focused on your goals is kind of a load of crap. And I guess that's coming from So the example I would give is when my daughter was in college, she rode for the University of Oregon. Anybody that has lived through a winter in Oregon, it's about 38 degrees. It's rainy. It's gray. It's miserable. It's just cold enough that you don't want to be outside because you're getting wet anyway. I think about her and how she started, and rowing is a very tough sport, and you get motivated at the beginning. You're all excited to go. But in January, February, when that alarm clock goes off at 4:30 in the morning, and you've got to go out into the lake when it's 35 degrees and raining on you, motivation leaves faster than I don't know, a drunken one night stand. It's gone, right? It's and I think the focus and the discipline are the thing that gets you through. So, goal setting is going to be hugely important, because that's where that discipline and that focus to stay on task derives, I think.
We got Sean and Dana online saying hi.
Hello.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing that always kind of I find interesting is when people write goals and they set these goals that they're more aspirational, or they're so far out that it's like, hey, really, I got it, but before we become an Olympian, let's like win a Cat 5 race first.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is that when we look at these goals, that we really want something to be clear and achievable. And if they are clear and they're achievable, then they can actually be used for motivation. So what do you think is like a good goal for somebody during the winter training months?
Well, I think there's a couple things, on the track side of things, on my end. We want to get into the gym. We want to start building some muscle. We want to rebuild that aerobic base a little bit, so we can actually build off it as we get into the springtime. I think the first thing with goals is figure it out where you're at right now. If I'm lifting X amount, if I'm squatting X amount of weight for X amount of reps, then I can actually have an attainable goal of saying, okay, in a month, I want to be squatting X plus, 10 kilos for the same number of reps. I think Pete Taylor said it really well, and says it all the time. Manage your expectations. Would I like to be able to squat 800 pounds? Sure. Am I going to be able to squat 800 pounds anytime soon? Yeah, no. So if you're putting those crazy goals out, you're doing yourself a disservice, because at some point you're going to go, well, that's never attainable. And then the opposite of motivation kicks in.
Yeah. On the roadside, one of the things that I'll see a lot is I'll have a roadie will be like, well, my goal is I want to have, a top 5 performance at pick a race, pick a nationals, and so forth. And one of the things I always tell them is like, yeah, that's a good aim. That's a good aspiration. But what happens when you don't know? I mean, you don't know who's going to show up.
Yeah,
you
it's
don't know
very, very hard to quantify something like that, and that's the problem with anything that involves more than, that a goal that involves more than one person. If you're doing a criterium, if you're doing, a scratch race, if you're doing a Karen, if you're doing even a match sprint, you've got somebody next to you with the same aspirations and the same desire to achieve those aspirations. So, it becomes a roll of the dice in a lot of ways. It's significantly easier to have an attainable, markable, manageable goal that you can quantify, from this point to, 2 national championships 7-8 months down the road.
And you can control.
Yep, absolutely.
Because I think that's the big one, because, just like you and I both as coaches struggled in 2020 because we had almost every one of our athletes whose goal was to win some race in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And last time I checked, there wasn't any 2020 races other than some folks doing some Zwift racing or whatever.
Yeah. 2020, I still have nightmares about. Yeah, that was not a good time. And if we could avoid that again anytime soon, that would be fantastic. But yeah, so I think both of us had to get really creative in 2020 and go, okay, so we're going to, add 2 watts per kilo to, your 5-minute power. We're going to, which is a bit of a chunk, but, we're going to get into the gym and we're going to really focus on proper lifting form. And then we're going to add, 10, 15 kilos to your squat or your deadlift or your power clean or whatever. Those goals are attainable. Those goals are very markable. Those goals are very trackable. And that's kind of the necessity of I think where we need to go with this. I mean, I would love to go out to a race and go, yep, my goal for the year is to win this race. How do I quantify that? Well, I train harder than everybody else. I get really lucky. Everybody in my competition doesn't train nearly quite as hard. That's completely unattainable. It's completely untrackable, and it's completely out of your control.
Right. But I do think you can take that aim and you can break that aim down into smaller goals that are, specific and measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, and then be able to measure those either at the competition or before the competition. If the competition doesn't happen, on the roadside, I mean, we have weather, that type of stuff. Then, those could actually be milestones that'll help you get to kind of your aim.
Yeah. And I think it's important to have those aims. I think, I want to win a national championship. That's a great aim. That's the motivation part of
Right.
the entire equation. I think, how you do that becomes the focus and discipline part of that, and I think everybody's goals to achieve such an aim have to come down to breaking those components down in a logical basis and going, okay, what do I need? And you almost reverse engineer the entire thing. What do I need to be in position, be in the ballpark of achieving that aim. What are the things I need to work on? What are the things I need to focus on? And you go back to, okay, well, where am I right now? I mean, if I haven't done a 30-second Wingate power test on the Watt bike in 5 years, it's going to be really hard for me to be able to quantify that focus into how do I get to that aim.
All right. So John's got a question for us. So quantitative, measurable versus qualitative, comparative. A time trial is quantitative, winning or faster versus others is yeah. No, I agree. Well,
Sure.
that's to you. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, well, no, I agree with that, but I mean, we certainly need quantitative goals to be able to measure it. You only get one shot at nationals. You only get one shot at world championships. You only get one shot at Somerville Crit, per year. So, the quantitative ones, become a factor with that, because you have to be able to measure your opportunities where you can. You can't jump into Somerville Crit, with the idea that you're going to win, without a very, very strong basis of having some actionable comparisons, examples of your ability to win. I'm not going to jump into Somerville and say I'm going to win Somerville and then not do anything to at the best of our abilities ensure that I'm in it with a fight. I think is really what it comes down to. You have to be, it's very easy to say, and I've got athletes, and I've had athletes where, I want to win nationals. Okay, well, what are you going to do to win nationals?
Or what's it take to win nationals?
Yeah, what does it take to win nationals? More importantly, and then we get into what is all in. And you and I have talked about that on multiple occasions, and I don't know that it's necessarily appropriate for this particular conversation.
Yeah, we don't have the time for that one.
No, I don't think we do. But essentially, your commitment to your goal should be equal to the level of your goal. If I want to win a world championship, that should be kind of my, one of my big priorities in life, because it's going to take that amount of work to achieve that goal. So they have to be measurable. They have to be realistic. More than anything, I think they have to be realistic.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right. So talk about all that. You always kind of run into setbacks. You've got these things that occur that in a lot of ways, most of us can't control. You've got injury. You've got, even kind of a lack of progress. People plateau on certain ways. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think as far as motivational, especially when they get to the point that they've got self-doubt or they have a fear of failure? And the quote I sent you this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to trust the process. I think you have to believe in the process first and foremost. I think that plays a huge role in all of it. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe in your support system that's going to happen. Setbacks. Everybody gets the flu. Everybody gets the crud. You had the crud for 3 weeks? I thought you were just going to drop over dead at some point. But
you and I both.
I've got a bit of knee surgery that I got to go and take care of. It's very frustrating. I mean, I can speak for myself and go, yeah, this sucks. This is going to put a chink in my training plan. It's, I've had to scramble some stuff around. I've had to adapt, but at the end of the day, you adapt and you overcome. You approach it from a logical, reasonable understanding, and you put away the emotional side of it as much as you can, and go back to trusting the process, focusing on your goals, focus on attaining your goals. And in a lot of ways, I like the big aim. I like the big grandiose thing. If it's within reason, I'm not making an Olympic team from any country on the planet. So me wanting to go to the Olympics is kind of out of the water, but having a lofty big goal, I want to win a big race. I want to be, I want to be successful at Worlds. I want to do this, do that, is great. But I think goals, in tiny little pieces, it's how you eat an elephant, right? You just one bite at a time. If you take a goal, and I think if you break it down as far as you want to go, to the point where, it's like, okay, at 6 a.m., I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk to the gym and I'm going to do this gym workout. And then I'm going to start my day. And if you focus on those little things, the big things come relatively easy.
So, what's funny, Brian, is everything you've talked about are things that you can control.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's the outside elements that you're not allowing to focus. And what I mean, or not allowing to influence you. And what I mean by that is, like, you're talking about your effort, you're talking about your consistency, and you're talking about your mindset.
Yep.
And those are all things that we can control. And like you mentioned, I mean, you've got a surgery coming up, but yet you too have a support system of folks that you'll be able to reach out to, and who you will say, hey, well, you've thought about doing this type of strength training to come back when it comes to this injury and stuff like that. And I think that's what a lot of athletes fail at, is that they think that they're the first ones that's ever gone through this. Mm-hmm. And there's nobody else out there that can help them. And it's just not factual.
Yeah. And there's got to be a willingness to, to have those conversations with your support system, because everybody has a support system. I have the, we were talking about this before the podcast, talking about some of the things that, I'm planning to do once I get out of recovery and I'm free to, clear to get back to work. That's hugely invaluable. Maybe you don't have that, sitting in your pocket, but, there's certainly people, the cycling community is a very tight, dysfunctional family in a lot of ways. There's somebody you can shoot an email to, ask a question of, and they can point you in the right direction. Take advantage of that stuff. If you don't understand, how to approach something, there's people out there that can walk you through that process for sure.
Right. So, let's go into the last item, and you kind of alluded to this one too, is when you have those tough phases, how do you stay motivated? What happens when you got monotony and you got fatigue and just the mental toll of winter? You're looking at that. I get this all the time. I got a question on the Facebook page, and they're like, is it possible to gain aerobic fitness on the trainer when your ass doesn't allow you to sit there for greater than an hour? Or your mind doesn't allow you to sit there and watch stupid 1980s movies for hours at end.
Right. Yeah. No. And I personally fall under that category. One of the things I do, I actually did a trainer workout last night. I was very pleased with myself. I made it a full hour. And the key was to make it, to make the work very specific, right? If you ask me to sit on a trainer for an hour and just, watch football or something, you better be armed, because that ain't going to happen. I'm not going to do it. I will go to great lengths to go outside in a Colorado winter to be able to ride my bike outside just to avoid sitting in my living room, pedaling around on a trainer at zone 2 or whatever. I think you make those specific things. And I think, one of the guys I used to train with years and years and years and years ago, Irish guy, and we would go and sprint telephone poles. So, we sprint a telephone pole, recover a telephone pole, sprint a telephone pole, and after not a very long period of time of going full stick between telephone poles, you got pretty tired pretty quickly. And we would play games with, okay, well, we're just going to go to the next telephone pole. And once we get to the next telephone pole, we're going to go the next telephone pole. And it's amazing what your brain can do when you go, okay, well, I'm not really that tired. I can make it one more. I can make it one more. I can make it one more. If you change that around and you go, okay, well, I've got to do 2 hours zone 2, and your butt hurts because somehow sitting on a trainer makes a perfectly comfortable bike miserable. I still haven't figured out the physiology behind that, but I'm reasonably sure it's fact. Okay, so I'm going to spend the next 4 minutes out of the saddle. I'm going to ride 4 minutes out of the saddle, or I'm going to go and, one of the things that I convince myself if I've got to do that is I'll watch football and I will throw a sprint in or an effort, a tempo effort, every commercial that comes in, just to mix it up a little bit. And places where, it's snowing in Pennsylvania, apparently, it's snowing in Chicago, it's snowing all through the Midwest. Get a pair of snowshoes or a pair of cross-country skis and your heart rate monitor and go out and do the work in some other fashion. Aerobic capacity is aerobic capacity. Mix it up, make it interesting. Always keep it interesting.
All right. So Sean's got a really good question. And before I throw it up here, I'm going to caveat the question because as you and I, as both coaches, it becomes well, what about if I need a mental health day type of question? And so here's Sean's question. When all the cylinders are firing, it's easy to attack the training on a daily basis. But when you are in the doldrums, motivation can be challenging. Is a fun day beneficial to reset the mind and body? When your coach is telling you that day is supposed to be on the watt bike doing, you understand where I'm coming from.
I do. My first response to that is embrace the suck and remember what your objectives are. And then, I use embrace the suck a lot because you kind of have to be a bit masochistic to be a bike racer. On one side of the equation, you have to kind of go, that watt bike thing that somebody's making me do is not going to be particularly fun, but you make it fun. And Sean continued to write fun day, meaning training that is unplanned, group ride, tandem, go for a swim, go golfing. Yeah, I think as long as you're getting the work done and trying to stay really focused on the task at hand, I think refreshing yourself and making it a fun day. If it's a zone 2, and I guess it was kind of sort of similar to the example I was given. If it's a zone 2 ride, then throw some rocks in a backpack, and go on a ruck. It's all the same. In a lot of senses. If you're supposed to be doing really specific things, then I'd say, grind through the really specific things to the best of your ability, and then go have a fun day the next non very, very specific training day you have.
Yeah, I
What
would
about
throw in
you?
there that. Yeah, I would throw in there this. I mean, if we're talking about during like a base period, yeah, I mean, because at that point in time, our whole focus is just building aerobic capacity.
Yep.
And anything you do that helps build that aerobic capacity, is doing it. And you've seen it on Dana's and my training plan. We might have an hour recovery ride and we go walk for 2 hours.
Yep.
That type of stuff. I
Sure.
think when you get into a build, you're talking about specificity, when you're really trying to, hammer in and fix something or get better at something, it becomes a little bit different. On a nutrition side, I jokingly, people will ask me, actually, I think Sean, you even asked me, people ask me, do you ever take cheat days? And I jokingly say, I cheated for 50 years. I've burned up all my cheat days.
They're
So
gone.
I think that when it comes to like these, fun days, yeah, there's a time and place, and most of us know when the time and place is. And that, as long as the fun days aren't out, or they don't become an automatic substitute for really hard days, then I think there could be some value there. The book, Brave Athlete, he talks about, injuries, and he talks about, quitting. And there's two things he talks about: a legit quit and a shit quit.
Yep.
Legit quit is when, if you don't quit, you're going to go to the hospital. The shit quit's when you quit and you look in the mirror and you go, shit, I could have done that one.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're at a point in time in which, you're so unmotivated that physically getting on the bike is meeting the 25% rule, by you're getting that much so you can do it again tomorrow, I think there's value there. As long as the fun
Sure.
days don't outnumber the work days.
Well, and I think, the one caveat I would put to all of that is, yeah, by all means, because we all have those days where it's like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I absolutely freaking do not want to do this. I'm sore, I'm tired, I'm dragging, I don't want to do this. And yeah, there's times when you actually, have to take it. That's, I would tell Sean, that's why there's, built-in recovery weeks that are 3 days away. But
those are your fun week. Those are your fun days.
That's your fun days, baby. But you never want to get into that habit. It's like quitting a race, right? If you're, and I'm famous for getting pulled out of races that are longer than, 6 laps, because that's kind of my whole focus in life. But, getting pulled out of a race is a lot different than going, oh, look, I've just gotten rolled off the back the first climb we got to, I'm pulling the plug, and that becomes habit forming, and those fun days, if you're, and it's all relative too, right? If you're a recreational rider that rides to, because you enjoy being on your bike and you want to get some fitness, and, you want, all 4 quads showing up when you walk down the street, cool. Take a fun day. If you want to win a, something huge, I want to win a national title, then yeah, you should probably, minimize those fun days as much as possible, because your opponents are not.
Right. Exactly. Sorry. They were coming in to take out my trash. So, no, that's great. So
I need
kind of
people
lost
for
my
that,
thought
really.
for a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and it's a juggling match, right? It's a constant juggling match. How much is too much? How much is not enough? And these are the things you have to develop, and you have to be honest with yourself in terms of those things. I made everybody in my program fill out a goal sheet, and send it in to me. I filled out my own. And yeah, there are times when it sucks to be honest. It's like, nope, didn't do that. I should have done that. And those are the days, it's back to your original statement. If you quit because if you didn't, you were going to go to the hospital, that's a lot different. And you have to be honest and very proprioceptive to how you're feeling. Cycling is a hard sport. Doing very specific high level goals in cycling make a hard sport significantly harder. And you have to be willing to suffer. You have to be willing to do the work that your opponents don't want to do to be successful at the highest levels in the sport. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're going to have to be honest with yourself and go, maybe my aspirations are a little higher than I'm willing to put in. And we're
all right. On that note, I think that might be a good next show. All in. We promised everybody about 30 minutes. We're right around 31 minutes at this point in time. So, Brian, thanks for joining me tonight, and everybody that was online. Thank you very much for coming. If you want to, if you like more content like this, subscribe and set up your notifications. Brian and I are going to do this again next week. We haven't quite figured out the timing since the Thanksgiving is on Thursday.
That thing, yeah.
Yeah. And if anybody's got any ideas of what you all would like to see, please don't hesitate to throw down in the comments on the chat or on the on YouTube. And if anybody needs somebody in their corner, support, Brian's and my emails will be there too. We look forward to any questions and we'll get to them. Brian, any closing thoughts?
No, thank you for letting me take the majority of the time gabbing endlessly about this. But as always, a pleasure getting to chat with you about these things that we spend a lot of time chatting about. But thank you for having me.
Been a pleasure. And thanks for everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.
See y'all.